Greetings. My name's Philip Daniel Miles. I am very excited today to be talking about one of the best signs of the zodiac. They're all great, but this one I'm very enthusiastic about. And I'm here with my compadre, dear philosopher, fantastic astrologer, syncretist, Santos Bonacci. How are you doing, sir?
Great, Philip. Great, brother. Thanks for having me on. And so people know we're not far from each other. You're just 30 minutes down the road from me on the Mayan Riviera in Playa, and I'm in Puerto.
How are you enjoying the wet season, the beginning of these rainy times at the beginning of, we're just moving into the summer here, aren't we?
Yep.
I quite like a bit of rain because it feels like England to me, but it's certainly different to a few weeks ago when it was sunny every day.
Yep. Now I'm burning incense for Sagittarius. You'll see, I'll explain why this pertains to Sagittarius.
Is it because it's the embers and the incense and it raises the frequency? Because when the last time we spoke was Scorpio, which is dust to dust, ashes to ashes, the death. And this is the coming from that stage. This is like the rising phoenix. But why does this incense correlate to Sagittarius?
All right, well, let's go mythological, shall we? And let's go by the deacons of Sagittarius. One of the deacons of Sagittarius is called Ara, the altar. So you've got Draco, you've got Lyra, the harp, and you've got an altar where you make a sacrifice. This is all significant because it's the ninth sign corresponding to the ninth house where you devote yourself to the gods. All the mutable signs are about service. Virgo is service to humanity. Pisces is also service to the spiritual knowledge and understandings of humanity. Gemini is intellectual and Sagittarius is mystical. But Sagittarius is the number 9 and there is an altar there for a very specific reason. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter Zeus, Jesus, and that's him standing on the Mount of Olives. It is Mount Olympus, Sagittarius. And right next door is Capricorn, where his daddy Saturn rules, the Titan. And this is where Jupiter makes a sacrifice on the altar before defeating the Titans. And this is where Jesus makes his sacrifice by allowing himself to be given over to the Titans of this world, and on the Mount of Olives, which is the Garden of Gethsemane, which is Sagittarius. So if we're going mythological, it's all about incense, burning to the gods. It's about spiritual devotion to the gods. It's the house of wisdom, the house of travel. It's the house of luck. It's a lucky house. It's a house of dreams and visions and the subtle mind, the higher mind, and nurturing the higher mind. Excuse me, I just had a smoothie.
Is it a good one?
And it's making me burp.
So we can say that we might have a lust or a desire to go off something which is more of the physical, but what we can do is we sacrifice ourselves and by altering our desire to go after the mundane, for instance, argument's sake, a steak, a beer, or even having frivolous sex or masturbation. And so we devote ourselves to a higher cause or a higher meaning or something which has got a lot more wisdom behind it, which will yield results because of our practice. This is more Sagittarian, right?
Yeah, Sagittarius is the sign of, I guess, a complete cycle of the spiritual aspect of humanity, more so than the physical evolution. It has to do with spiritual evolution and transcendence, wisdom seeking. Opposite Gemini, which is all about knowledge seekers, and Sagittarius are wisdom seekers. So if we compare the difference on that axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, we get Geminians, knowledge, Sagittarians, wisdom, Geminians, intellect, Sagittarius, understanding, Gemini, concrete facts, Sagittarius, abstract thought, Gemini, nearsighted, Sagittarius, farsighted, Gemini, student, Sagittarius, teacher, Gemini, ideas, Sagittarius, ideals, Gemini, short journeys, Sagittarius, long journeys. So that shows how you really complete that number 9. Number 3, of course, Gemini is all about the foundation by which you start your thinking, your knowledge, your ideas, your intellect. And then Sagittarius, now you've gone full right 180 degrees. Now you are in another zone, and it's a very blessed sign. Really, it blesses the individual. They are certainly the happiest. All things being equal, Sagittarius is the happiest sign, bar none. They're jovial, Jupiterian. Jove means Jupiter. So they are jovial by nature.
So my grandmother would always go, for instance, if she dropped something like butter, you go, oh, butterfingers. But what she might say, oh, by Jove, by Jove. And it was kind of like a soft curse, if you will.
Yeah, well, see, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, if you would say by Jove, you'd get reproved. They'd say, hey, that's Jehovah. And so there's the funny thing. Jehovah and Jove and Shiva, it's all the same God. But then that also translates to Pater Noster, which is Jupiter, our Father who art in heaven. Pater, Peter. Peter means father, and rock, Petra.
And it means the fires, doesn't it? So it's when you have like a very spicy curry or something with the fires, the pitta.
Pitta, it is. And in fact, it is one of the 3 doshas. It's pitta, which is ether and air. So I know pitta is water and fire and light. It has 3 characteristics.
I was learning as a Saturn type myself. I love like curry and things, but for my body type, it's really bad for me because I'm cold and warm. The last thing I need is more fire because it's really inflammatory. And so I learned to have cucumbers and things like this. This is what I should have as a Saturn body type because there's so much pitta in a hot curry, and that's like this Jupiter. And it's got a hook though, isn't it? Anything Jupiterian, you can get caught into like the extremities of going into international travel or to go into learning about a certain philosophy. You get hooked into it, especially like certain religions or certain dichotomies or ways of going into this higher echelon of thought.
Yep, I agree.
Interesting. I enjoy the mutable energy. Is as you say, the end of the season when you're moved, like we are currently in the Gemini time. We're moving from the end of spring, bridging it into the beginning of summer. And Mercury also rules Virgo, which is bridging the end of summer into autumn. So that's the first 2 mutable, whereas Jupiter is ruling Sagittarius, which is the end of autumn into the winter. And then also Pisces, which is the mutable sign, which brings us from the end of winter back to the beginning of spring. And Jupiter takes the 12 years to cycle, whereas it actually takes Mercury 6 years to go and visit all of its signs and retrograde in each sign. So it's half of a Jupiter cycle.
Wow, that's very, very good. I like that.
Thank you. They are cogs, aren't they? So it's the cognitive thinking and the higher thinking.
And it's funny because they are the only two planets that rule mutable signs. No other planet rules, or I think exalts, in mutable signs other than Sagittarius and Mercury. Jupiter and Mercury.
It's cool, huh? And so you can always think, okay, well, if Mercury's retrograde in Gemini this year, 6 years ago, in 2005, it would have retrograde in Gemini again. But that time, Jupiter would have been in its opposite signs of Leo and Virgo, because this year it's in Aquarius and Pisces. So that's the way I recognize that. But again, what I love about Sagittarius, just moving on to the next interesting thing, is that it rules the thighs in the body. And the thighs are what you have to utilize if you're going on a journey. If you want to reach to the top shelf, you need to use your thighs. And it's the Centaur, which is half horse in the depiction of the mythological Sagittarian creature, and half human. And so the human is really the God facet of the depiction, as far as I see it. And the horse is more like this vehicle, this human suit, the flesh. And so it's the spirit incarnate into the flesh. And this is the wisdom of the Sagittarius archetype, the centaur, is that it's the spirit in the flesh. It's us, really. We are centaurs, and we are the center of creation. And so what I like also about the anatomy is that, yes, the thighs, T-H-I-G-H, also sounds like thigh, the golden mean, the golden ratio, beauty, which is actually the spirit molecule, the Christos, the Christ, which starts here, as we know, in pineal, in the head, Aries, but part of the Sagittarius archetype is in the head, the anatomy, because it's the hippocampus. Yes. And the hippo is the water horse. And so when we're on our journey, when we're doing our spiritual highest echelon practices, then we get to generate the hippocampus, like in our REM sleep and in our practice, in our monthly cycles, and all of these things, which allows us to release the dimethyltryptamine, or the spirit molecule, down the 33 vertebrae and do our thing.
Yep, and hippo is, as you said before, it rules the hips, and that's where it comes from, actually. Yes. Hips, yeah. So when you're climbing mountains, you're actually using your horse archetype in the hips. And I also want to correct what I said before, that no planets other than Jupiter and Mercury rule or exalt in mutable signs. That's wrong. Venus exalts in Pisces, and the North Node exalts in Gemini. So, but they do dominate the mutable signs, and the mutable signs have to do with bicorporeal themes, and such as bisexuality, homosexuality, as well. When those signs are prominent, like for instance in the angles, like ascendant signs in Gemini, or in the MC especially, and then there's some other unusual, like Mercury might be conjunct Mars. That's one that also in say Virgo, and if the person has a lot of those mutable signs in strong houses, in strong angles, that produces the tendency for the individuals to either be very, very well centered in their female and male archetype, or be polarized. And that's where you get a lot of bisexuality, etc., from those signs and other planets which are also doing things which add to that already existing dynamic. So it's a whole series of things that you can look for, but generally that's one of the things you can look for telling the individual's nature as to how they are sexually internally, this, judging and understanding their sexual their sexuality as well.
I recently came across some information from a Vedic astrology research I was doing. Thank you to Claire Nukti. She did some brilliant work on her channel. But she was talking about Jupiterian men or women. And so a Jupiterian man is probably going to find that he will get a bit of a more mature woman, because originally women will go for more racy, more exciting, more of a Sean Connery solar type, martial type at first, but then they eventually want someone who's going to provide for them, give them wisdom and substance within their relationship. It might not be as exciting, but it's going to be warm, and that's really what is more exciting, in my ideas. And so these Jupiterians look for more of a power couple if you've got a Sagittarius or a Piscean ascendant. And she gives really good examples, such as Courtney Love. Well, she went for Kurt Cobain. And like Ronda Rousey is like, and if you're in a woman, it's going to have much more of a fuller Jupiterian lip. I think that's for the blokes as well. A male example would be like Seth Rogen or what have you, like that. So these are interesting things. But going back to the Christos, the Christ energy, and how actually that is that Fibonacci, right? That's the golden ratio. Would you agree?
Yep.
So
yep.
which is like a quincunx, 150-degree straight line is the closest thing you can get to a curve with regards to perfection, a Venetian curve, like a rose, because it's actually, that's what makes a pentagram, a 5-pointed star. And so that's beauty, and that's when you see perfect symmetry, because stars make perfect symmetry. You and I, we're stars. And so this water horse, this Sagittarius, this vehicle is the chemistry set to create pure beauty, which is our semen, our eggs, our ideas, our architectural practices, whether it's music, whether it's even what we're talking about is pretty beautiful. But, you know, all of these different things that we're able to create in life come from our essence, comes from this God juice, which we are, the source, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So we've been experiencing a lot of alterations with regards to belief systems in these current times, because we've had the South Node going through Sagittarius. And we're also having a closing square today between Uranus and Saturn. They don't rule Sagittarius, but they had their conjunction there back in 1988. And so we're having the last 90-degree closing square of a cycle that started in Sagittarius and shall come to its close in 2032. And it's funny because it comes to its close 179 degrees across the way in Gemini, which is really interesting. And
wow.
So I see that this is about the belief systems of the international humanity and how many times we've been divided because we've been divided by race, language, gender, age, class. But the kind of thing that we've been living through these past 18 months specifically has awakened people much more to the bullshit, at least a percentage of people. And so maybe we can find ways of reorganizing and connecting rather than dividing. This is what I'm seeing the potential of with this closing square, that some people are going to be able to really demonstrate advocating for our own value in a radical way. This is what we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be kind of Saturnian and Uranian with regards to this feature, because it's chaos and order. If you want to bring a new thing, which is radical, you need to kind of order it as well. So it's a kind of weird thing to be able to find that equality. That you've got to be organized for getting your school together. You've got to be organized for getting your stuff together. I've got to be organized for getting my workshops together. So that's Saturn stuff, but it's Uranian to bring it in, Uranian to perceive it, it's Uranian to organize it and to connect all the dots. And so you've got to kind of use a philosophy to bound it all together. And that's really what we're working with Sagittarius, to bring us back to our subject.
Yep. It's the philosopher's sign, definitely. You'll find a lot of these people will love to do pilgrimages, visiting temples and doing retreats, traveling abroad, and just Pretty much like the Fool in the tarot card, I think. I get that energy from Sagittarius strongly, you know, just happy-go-lucky.
I really liked what you said about the three deacons and how actually, if you can just refresh again for free, because I like how we recognize, some people are recognizing that the very end of Sagittarius is the center of the galaxy or the super black hole, or even the way I like to describe it metaphysically is if that is the case, then this is like the projector of the holographic reality. And so it's all of the collective belief systems that have to go through a lens of perception, a holographic lens. And we each have that lens within ourselves, wherever that part of the sky falls into our natal charts. And so when you describe the three deacons, that aligned with that. If you could do that again, that would be awesome.
Yeah, those three deacons are very significant. They all have the word Ra in them. Draco, Ara, and Lyra. And so Lyra it's Sagittarius is the pearly gates, because remember, you have to go through the pearly gates of Jupiter, St. Peter. He has the keys. The keys is the solstice of December 21st, the last day of Sagittarius, where Achilles gets it in the heel, Jesus gets a nail in the foot. All the gods, all of them have their wound in the foot on the cross, because it's the foot, right? So it's the pearly gates. There's the angels playing in heaven on their lyras. There's altars to offer sacrifices.
A lyra, is that like our chakra system and our having the opportunity to go to each frequency of each of the planets? So basically, a lyra is an analogy for having a human body and knowing how to utilize it instrumentally.
It is, yeah, because that's the seven chakras, the seven strings of the lyra, the planetary notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. These are all planets, and that's their frequency, and it's in the music. So
also that goes around the zodiac, doesn't it, from each of the 12 signs, and you can see that with the white notes and the black notes, the majors and the minors on the keyboard, correct?
Yep.
Can you do the do, re, mi, fa, so again in correlation to these?
This is called the holy octave. It's holy because it's whole circle. It's a whole octave.
Which is infinite. Whole, it's a whole thing. It rings on forever because it's a symbology.
Mm-hmm. And everything that has a hole in the heavens, like the sun, which is a wormhole, and the moon, which is a portal and a wormhole, they're all holy because they are holes. So that this is why the word holy comes from, is the same as the word whole, because the ancients knew that everything came from what you can't see, as it says in the scriptures. The scripture in Hebrews, where it says, we know that all of the visible things in the world that we see comes from what is unseen. In other words, little holes in counter space, out of which comes the Holy Spirit, the Word of God, made manifest or made flesh. So it's sound coming out of holes, wormholes in counter space, and producing an effect, a vibratory effect. Vibration comes from the word vibora. Vibora is a serpent. So the sine wave is the viper, vibora, vibration. So these holes produce vibrations, which produce this illusion of the time-space continuum and matter. And matter, of course, is an anagram for atom. It's backward, in fact, for all these atom. It's in reverse, it's matter, and which also has to do with, in Spanish, matar. Matar is to kill, matar, matador. A matador is a killer, right? So matter See, the atom brings life, but it also brings death because it is the symbol of death. It's a cross. It makes a cross. Electromagnetism is a cross. One's longitudinal, one's transverse. So those are the two energies that make the whole universe. Therefore, that cross is the symbol of matter. And the T is in the word, atom, because you can only make matter with the letter T. Without the letter T, matter could not be produced. T or D, which is interchangeable.
So this cross which we are, this matter which we are, and we are also not it, because a knot is a matter, it's a karmic knot. And what it really is that we perpetually come back into matter, like Christ's always saying that it's coming back. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which plays an analogy of Christ in The Terminator, says, I'll be back. And we always come back, often playing the same roles if we have the opportunity to follow our genealogy line, so that we can pick up where we left off and finish. Never finish, never finish, always come back, because we get so in love with this caricature which we play, this overture, this frequency, this sound vibration. And it's always a little bit out of tune because we got kinks in our wheel, we got kinks in our reality, and we've always got to love it more so that it can come into its wholeness. And so what a matador does, what a human being does, is it doctors. We change. What was the other word which you used a minute ago? Death. We are death. Death is
death. Yeah.
So we are the end and the beginning. We are the alpha and the omega. We're the whole gosh darn thing, right? And we can see this within the Sagittarian archetype because it's inclusive to the flesh that is pronounced within the deity of the horse. And my name, Philip, means lover of horses. I don't think that means I love going down the farm. Do you? I think it means I love these opportunities to come in flesh vehicles. That's what my spirit loves, isn't it? That's what my name really means.
Yep.
And so, Santos, have you got any planets in Sagittarius?
No, just it's in the IC, opposite Gemini in my MC, which is...
Your root?
Yep.
So you see by two different people of different nationalities?
Yes.
That's interesting, isn't it? That often would be a IC in Sagittarius. I think that's the best way to go, because it's like going into the alchemical pot. It's taking two rich descendancies and coming together and making that your composite nature.
Yep.
That's very good. I've got Saturn, Mercury, and Uranus in Sagittarius, which is a challenge. But it's great. I've got used to it. I like it. Because it's Saturn's 12th. And it's Mercury's 7th, all the way across the way from its home sign. They're not at their best there, and Uranus isn't like having a right old party there either. But I've made it work as best I can, and I enjoy it. So Sagittarius, when we're talking about philosophy and truth, it is also, as you mentioned, some kind of subjective nature to it. What may be true for me isn't always necessarily what's true for someone on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah, but that's the truth of appearances. It's not the truth of reality. So the truth of reality is truth, not the truth. You never put the definite article or the indefinite article before truth to come to what that word really means. So as a principle of the universe, truth is the principle of the universe, and from which all attributes and all virtue comes from. Love cannot exist without truth. Vice versa can. Harmony, peace, these things cannot exist without truth. So truth is the truth that Sagittarians are seeking, understanding that truth.
So let's talk about some of these symbology with regards to Sagittarius. It's the ninth sign, which is a circle with a little line and like a little tail. So it's leading off into something new. Is that similar to the fact that it's like the first of the last, it's the first fire sign of the last four? It's like evolved beyond the matter. It's like I've got this whole awareness going off and to create something, a new story. But that takes 12 years cycle as well, Jupiter. And so many things will impact upon us, like Jupiter within a 12 years, but it makes us stronger. It gives us more wisdom.
Yeah, for sure. That 9 is really a way of expressing the golden ratio.
Oh, can you go on with this? Because the golden ratio is also, I'll tell you my little bit, which is short, and then I want to hear yours. So Fibonacci is, well, we know the word fib is a lie, but like the Fibonacci, when you see something beautiful, or when you're in the honeymoon of something, when you're having a really good meal, or when you're reading a great book, or when you're playing one of your songs, Santos, you know, when you're doing something like this, you're in a moment that lasts forever, and it's no moment at all. So it's like, it takes your breath away. So that's like the fib of no chi, the prana, you're just there. But it's like the lie, it's captivating, so it takes you away. What do you feel about this golden ratio and how it relates to the 9? I want to
know. Yes, well, it's actually 8 is the real number, isn't it? So it's 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. So 8 is the octave, which that number there is important because it also has to do with doubling 1, 2, 4, 8, and with the golden ratio. So 8 is a very, very significant number in terms of it is in both systems, the doubling system and the 1.618 ratio system. So
metaphysically, if we could just like look at this 8, because I want to see if we're on the in the same path here. My pen isn't great here, but the 8 has got a bottom circle and a top circle, right? It's a bit like the infinity symbol. I'm a life path 8, so I see that this bottom 4. I see this as a bottom 4 and a top 4, okay? And so you've got to do a lot of good self-work here, like to become sustainable. Otherwise, you're going to slump back down here. So a lot of people who are life path 8s can end up homeless or like lost and these types of things. But the people who manage to really end up working hard here can get to the top echelon. So I see this as like depression and the bottom 4 dimensions, where we often do go down every now and again. But as long as you're able to pick yourself up, this is actually the middle bit, and you get to walk on water and go on the top. But the thing is that we're bouncing souls. So we're going sometimes to the top, sometimes we're going to the bottom to bail ourselves out of whatever we caught into, whether it's an unhealthy meal or relationship or whatever. And sometimes we're up here, lofting around, having a great time. But the point is, if you can find the happy medium, then you get that golden ratio. That's the 9.
Right. Yep. That's where, if you turned that 8 into a 9, you would see how the 9 shows that the individual is now, there's not much activity down below. The loop is broken. So 9 breaks that loop. So just you have a circle above. So
it's about, would you say it's a bit really being a bit more of a master? You're like, I'm not dealing with that shit anymore.
Yep.
Life, so you have to be a bit cold, like Doctor Who. Doctor Who masters the TARDIS. Doctor Who masters the tetrahedron vehicle. Doctor Who is a master of humanity and a lord of time, because he has to say goodbye to everybody at the end of every episode so that he can then travel on and carry on his business. That's a 9.
Yep.
It's quite a lonely journey, right? But you must
for sure.
You've got to love yourself a lot to be a 9, to be able to work with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very sacred number. All numbers go back to 9. It's definitely the most fascinating and intriguing number. It hasn't captivated or more mathematicians in history for no reason. It's it's very, 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 very intriguing. Just let me get this call.
So when we're talking about a 12-year hero's journey, this is really interesting because I started my path almost as an astrologer about 12 years ago. And so now Jupiter's coming back to the same space as where I began. And I can see that I didn't realize when I set out 12 years ago that this was really my direction. I just kind of started amounting more and more information about the topic, you know. And so it's amazing what we can acquire, the wealth of experience, because it's a very valuable thing to attain, right? To become an astrologer or whatever you might choose to practice for 12 years, these types of things. Have you got any examples what you've managed to do in a 12-year cycle, or how you've progressed yourself in such a period?
Not really. I haven't paid a lot of attention to my Jupiterian returns, but I did once, and I did notice a few nice patterns at the year 12, 24, 36, 48, and 60 coming up. 48, definitely. That was 4 Jupiter returns. That was really when syncretism took off 10 years ago. So
oh, really? So like this is the full cycle for you with regards to like being an advocate as a syncretist and following, bringing this forward. So people wouldn't know what most people don't, if you on surface level, wouldn't know what syncretism is, and yet it's become profound as one of the most relevant things to research and become familiar with, right? Over these past, especially past 6 years, like since you've been working with it for 12, very strongly.
For sure, yeah, and it's only going to grow now with the academy we're opening next week here, and we're going to establish them all around the world. Neoplatonic, Hermetic, Mystery School, academies.
This is the trick with Jupiter. We can think about, okay, well, I've done this in the past 12 years. Now, what can I accomplish in the next 12 years? You could think that these schools are going to be popping up all over the world in different communities. Due to the first students that attend, they can go off to different parts of the world and seed their own schools as teachers, passing on the traditions which they are now which shall be investing in. Because Jupiter is all about that interior investment into the wisdom that we experience, which is within us all, really. And that's part of the jovial nature of Jupiter, is that whatever, as we say, like even in the cosmological affair that NASA depicts, it's like, okay, well, Jupiter like picks up loads of asteroids and things like this, which protects a lot of the personal planets like Earth or whatever have you in their storyline, right? But in that storyline, a bit like how in the biblical storylines, it's a good analogy for whatever impacts us in our experience makes us stronger. And you can have a humor about it. And the 4 humors in astrology are what dissolve all of our toxins, right? They are very magical substances, the 4 humors. And so if Jupiter is jovial, that's a very important part of life, just to kind of take it on the chin, if you will.
Absolutely. Jupiter is so important that without its light, nothing would flourish. Firmicus Maternus said that if only Jupiter existed, men would be immortal. But the gods made the heavens in such a way that bodies would be forced to disintegrate by the power of all the other planets. But he specifically said that if only Jupiter existed, there would only be immortality. That's how benefic that particular ray of light, which is the indigo ray. Saturn would be violet, but the indigo ray. That's how important that light is. It's for eternity.
So Rudolf Steiner talked about these interdimensional views on these archetypes, which are recognizing that each one of the planets are a different vibrational resonance of us or Earth at a different time and dimension, if you could even say that as well. So Jupiter is this immortal realm. It's the land of the immortals. We've already been through death and change, and we've come through it. And so we've got the wisdom to have experienced what it is to have our own self-sabotaging demise and all of these other things. It's kind of cool, right? It makes you want to get up and just start moving your hips and dancing, because you can celebrate like your worst moments and your best moments. This is what makes you move your hips, right?
Yep, for sure.
And so I was listening to somebody talk about going into these higher vibrational planes, and like we talk about the traditional dances that maybe like they do in these more First Nation kind of countries, like even Hawaii or even the Mayans here, and these types of things. And so they would spin, and doing this would take you to a different density. And this is like dancing, going into trance, doing all of these different things. They're very Jupiterian, right?
I have to get a call, man.
Okay.
My lunch is ready.
So we can go so up above and beyond with regards to our Jupiterian aspect. Have you got anything more to bring to the likeness of this archer? Because you mentioned how it shoots into the wound of a foot of the Christ archetype, which is a couple of days later, the solstice. It's kind of similar, like Sagittarius wraps up Chiron, it wraps up like also Cupid. Would you say it's all of the centaurs rolled into one with regards to these mythologies?
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that. All the mutable signs sum up the season, which they conclude. All the mutable signs sum up part of the nature of the individual when you turn them into houses, and they become cadent houses. Sagittarius being 9, it's very, very special because that's where the numbers, the individual numbers begin, right? So end. So, and it has 5 and a 4 in it, which is very, very special, isn't it? That's the beautiful thing about the number 9, the 5 and the 4.
Yes.
So
it's the support figure,
yeah,
4, and the pregnant 5. That's interesting, isn't it?
it is life and death.
It's also like a pregnant
well.
lady in a rocking chair, pregnant woman in a rocking chair, or like, you know, the support of this project. Like you have to find a template to support the astrology school. You know, you have to have, I have my YouTube channel, but like I could have a website that supports my project. Or even an artist, their easel and their pens are the 4, and their inspiration is the 5.
Yep.
That's good stuff, isn't it? So how about, well, this is another good way. So what about the written word 9, N-I-N-E? What have we got to say about this within the etymology? I see the N.
That's a good. That's
ups and downs, isn't it?
Yeah, N is a substitute or a interchangeable with the letter M, but N is more.
Naughty
it
and
speaks
nice.
about. Yeah, well, it's the real negating number. That's why it's always in the word negate. No, not, nothing, nowhere, nobody, never. it's always negating. So it's closing.
Neutral.
What M? Yeah, neutral. So 9 is suggesting that kind of energy. You know, the end. And there you go. The word end has an end right in the middle there. So that's interesting. But yeah, 9 gives off that energy, that understanding, completion of spiritual tasks of the 12 that we are here to do.
And if you put it in a block on a keyboard, if I'm looking at the keyboard in front of me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 makes a square, funnily enough.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
These digits. But we often do miss out 0. If you was counting properly, what I've seen people do who are quite educated would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's the proper true
Correct.
way to count. But
Yep.
9's the end
And
of the
0,
line.
that's right. That's exactly right. 9, the end of the line, and the end of the show.
Well, thank you for the time and energy today, Santos. I know it hasn't been particularly easy with this weather and our connection, but thank you for persisting. I'm grateful. Next time, we're going to talk about Capricorn. Obviously, I'm excited about that one. But thank you for your time today, and thank you, everybody, for watching. You're deeply and dearly appreciated.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Much love.
Thank you.